So this is kind of a hotly debated topic among gaming enthusiasts right now, and I'm gonna share my thoughts and say what I think. Physical games versus digital games. Which is the way to go? And what's in store for the future here? I'm sure a lot of people have already seen that I tend to like to show off my physical game collection, both in my videos and on social media. So yeah, obviously I'm a fan of physical media and owning the products you buy. I totally get that argument that people make for physical games. But you know what? I also see a lot of merit in digital games. Overall, digital is kind of just more convenient. Going back to physical games though, yeah, there's definitely something special about physically owning your game and just being able to look at it, play it, do whatever you want with it. You know, seeing that artwork on the cartridge or CD and the box, it's all good stuff. And also worth mentioning is that when you physically own a game, you can lend it out to a friend or sell it and get some money back. Which is an especially good thing if you have a physical copy of a game that's a bit older and maybe worth a lot now. And of course, if you're like me and kind of like a little kid who likes to show things off at show and tell, having physical games is great to show off on social media and stuff. Another big thing to bring up, of course, is that if you own a physical game, as long as nothing happens to destroy that disc or cartridge, you own that game forever. The same cannot necessarily be said for digital games. So yeah, there are some very good arguments out there as to why owning video games physically is better than owning them digitally. But this isn't to say that owning games digitally doesn't have its own advantages as well. I mean, for starters, I have to bring up the convenience factor because holy crap, loading up a game that you own digitally is just so much more convenient. I mean, when you want to play a physical game you own, you have to get out the disc or cartridge and swap it out with whatever's already in there, and it's a whole thing. Okay, I know I'm just sounding lazy right now, but really, you cannot deny the convenience factor of digital games. And even though you don't, like, physically own it, you still do own digital games that you buy on digital storefronts. If we're not talking about cloud games here, I'll get into that in a bit. But anyway, purchasing games digitally has become increasingly more widespread, and I can see why. It's kind of similar to how people don't really buy DVDs as much as they used to. I mean, then again, the alternative is streaming, which is a whole different thing for video games, and yeah, it's not really a direct comparison here. It is the same idea though, people like to choose convenience, and digital games are very, very convenient. But I know I can't talk about digital games without talking about the elephant in the room here, and that is games being delisted. With physical games, yeah, they only stay in the stores for so long, but you can always pick up used copies, that's always an option. With digital games though, that's not really true. Whether through licensing or other random unknown reasons, games will suddenly just disappear from digital storefronts and poof, they're gone. And you know, you can't really buy a used digital game, so if you decide that you want a game that was being sold on a digital storefront and it's gone, then you're screwed. That's all there is to it. At least in most cases though, if you've already bought in the game, then whether it's been delisted or not, you can continue to play it. Just make sure you don't lose access to it. Another topic I feel like I should bring up is cloud gaming. With digital games, even if you aren't physically holding the product, you still own it in a way. But cloud gaming, oh no. You are at the mercy of the servers. So yeah, I can't say I was too impressed with Google Stadia, and I felt like the writing was on the wall with how things would go with that. Like, you had to pay for the service and then buy the games on top of that when you don't even own those games, you're just playing them off the servers. That model was just dumb. So yeah, I don't think people were really surprised that Stadia had a short life and Google shut it down. Fortunately, everyone who bought games on Stadia got that refunded, so that's good at least. Despite how negatively I'm sounding about this, I do think cloud gaming has a future. If done right, streaming games can be a really convenient thing that people want to do. But I don't think it's going to work quite the same as streaming TV shows and movies. I really don't think physical games and digital storefronts are going away anytime soon. I'd like to be optimistic and just say that I think traditional consoles and game streaming devices can coexist. With that said, streaming games is a whole other beast compared to streaming TV shows. And I've heard that Stadia had a lot of problem with lag, so if Google can't even get it right at the moment, then I think it's gonna be a bit before it really takes off. I'll also mention really quickly how the prices of physical retro games have skyrocketed like crazy. In most cases, I'd say it's not really worth the price of owning those original games, and it's probably better to find some sort of digital re-release if you can, and it's way more convenient and cheap that way. But when it comes to retro game prices, that's kind of a whole other topic, and I've already made a whole separate video about that, so I'm not gonna focus on that too much here. So when it comes down to physical games versus digital games, where do I land? Well, I kind of do both. I know, this is yet another video where I ask a question and don't give a direct answer, so I'm being a tease again. But really, both of them have their advantages, and I don't think I could definitively say one or the other is my preference. I tend to buy physical copies of big releases on Switch, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'll pass up a game digitally, especially if it's on a big sale. Also for those indie games that are primarily released digitally but might get a short-lived physical run through limited run games or something like that, I'll just buy it digitally. I don't really want to jump through hoops to get physical versions, unless maybe it's some special collector's edition that comes with some really cool stuff or something, but that's very rare for me. And you know what? I have an Xbox Series S. So all of my current generation Xbox games I get digitally. I don't own any physical Xbox games beyond Xbox 360. Digital games on the Xbox Series are especially nice because I could just load games from every single Xbox generation in an instant. But with that being said, I just still love owning games physically. Especially Switch with those little cartridges, I just love it. So I really can't definitively pick a side here. I see a lot of people online being very passionate about one side or the other, but I say they're both right. So those are my thoughts, but what do you think? Are you someone who still only buys games physically and just has to have that physical copy? Or are you someone who typically buys games digitally and just think that's the best way to go? Or maybe you're like me and just somewhere in between. Let me know your thoughts about physical games versus digital games or cloud gaming or anything else that's relevant. I always appreciate the feedback. Well, thanks for listening to me talk about yet another topic that I didn't give a direct answer for. I appreciate it. I hope you all have a hat-stackin' good day.